I'm John Billingsley, and you are listening to Beyond Track podcast.
What are some thoughts of yours towards the whole, is Star Trek getting too woke?
The idea that a show that exists to push the boundaries in terms of what is acceptable and what it should be like just part of our human condition, which is, everybody on the fucking ship, as long as you're nice. To me, it's like you can't be too woke.
Red alert.
Hey everybody, and welcome to Beyond Trek podcast. We're a day late, but hopefully not $1 short. In the house with me, I've got Renzo and Big J as always, and today we're going to be talking about Star Trek episode, right, guys?
Yeah,
Star Trek.
This is the Star Trek podcast. Okay.
Wait, we're going to talk about Star Trek. I thought we were here for Lord of the Rings, so can I go home? Or I am home.
I have a knife for that somewhere around here.
I figured you would.
Today, it's Lower Decks Episode 3, We'll Always Have Tom Paris, which is a great title. I really love that, definitely a callback to that original TNG episode. TNG gets the lion's share of references in this whole show, so it's great to see all those callbacks.
Why does it? Do you think it's because that's like the more of the mainstream Star Trek series from the 90s was TNG?
I think TNG was definitely the core nostalgia that makes up contemporary Star Trek fandom.
Okay.
Probably just Mike McMahon's favorite one, right? So when he's looking for references, he pulls from there. But I mean, there's also been some excellent TOS references, TAS references, Deep Space Nine.
Oh, yeah.
This episode is chock full of Voyager ones too.
Oh yeah.
The show is good at distributing things, but you're right. TNG does get the majority.
Yeah. TNG is probably the easiest to jump into if you're just getting into Star Trek. Deep Space Nine, with all of its continuity, is kind of hard to catch episode by episode every now and then. And even Voyager, with move progression across the Delta Quadrant, has some continuity things that just can't be hand-waved if you're trying to get into the show. Enterprise additionally carries on that continuity bit, and the original series, by if you're an elder millennial, the original series probably comes off as a bit dated.
Well, let's not forget, right? Mike McMahon also ran this TNG Season 8 Twitter account too, right? So
yes, he did.
Is probably more intimately familiar individually with that show than all the rest. So, easier to pull stuff from there.
And if you haven't checked out the book that Mike McMahon wrote that was based on that Twitter account, you can Google book Mike McMahon wrote based off Star Trek Twitter account, and you'll be able to read about the adventures of Beckett Mariner before Lower Decks.
Oh, cool.
The book is called Star Trek The Next Generation Warped.
Interesting. Okay.
Yeah. Renzo found it by Googling what I just said.
The quick Google is important.
Yes, it is.
Good job there, Renzo.
There's this beautiful ship. You guys can't see it, but I'm looking at the Cygnus X1 site, brought to you by our friend who makes all these images for us, and it's going to be in the recording, but it's just the beautiful Cerritos hanging in space. I really love the animation for what they've done this season. They've really sort of added some details to the Cerritos and the scenes that make them feel a bit more textured. Don't know if anybody else is getting that.
I have seen more textured, and I also saw a post. Well, no, I think Dag, you posted. Was it from Twitter that showed a picture of the Cerritos engine room and the warp core things that go to the nacelles are finally
the
correct?
pylons are going down instead
Right.
of up. That might have been Twitter.
I think what it actually is not so much the texture for things, but I think it's that they've added in more detail, more fine detail to everything. If you even look through the intro scene, that last panel, the one where there's some big giant bug thing sucking on the nacelle, if you compare the season 1 version with the season 2 version, the season 2 version has tons more detail. There's this little flashy thing that goes in some sort of ingestion pipeline. I don't know. The whole thing is just more detailed, and I think that they've done that with every external shot in the show, so it just shows up that it looks better.
Yeah,
Oh,
I
good.
agree. There's a really cool comparison of each of the sequences from the opening shots that adds that extra detail. And then, of course, as we mentioned before, the Pakleds are now a major threat because they're fighting the Romulans, the Borg, and the Klingons.
I like that they gave the Pakleds some much needed screen time and turned them into more than just, I wouldn't even call it comic relief from TNG. Just they were came off as, I hate to use the word stupid, maybe less intelligent, and they still were dangerous. We thought that they were less intelligent, not really to be taken too seriously. They captured Geordi and had him prisoner for a while, and now in Lower Decks, they're pretty formidable. Like, you don't want to take them for granted. And
Yeah, in the original episode of Samaritans, they made it very clear that they're not stupid. They just can't communicate very well, and they don't think ahead, right? Like, you can trick them because they're not thinking about the next move, but they're quite shrewd. And I think that's the word I want to use for this. They're shrewd because they're coming up with conniving ways to get what they want and trick you too. They just don't think 2-3 moves ahead like Riker and crew do. And I just rewatched the episode the other day too. So yeah, it's a good episode to show you that there's different approaches to being clever or smart about something. Not everybody has to be a well-spoken Picard type. Sometimes you can approach things differently to get what you want. And it looks like by the time of Lower Decks, the Pakleds have definitely gotten some of the stuff that they wanted. I just want to know how. And we know that from the previous episode, somebody does seem to be helping the Pakleds. Remember, they mentioned how the refinement of that certain ore is outside of their current abilities. Mm-hmm. So something's behind their aggressiveness, and I hope that we get more of that plot line, even though we're not really following the Titan as closely as we were before.
I think that would be
more that makes us go.
Oh, I like it. Man of multiple talents. So I'm looking forward to diving into this episode.
Oh, yeah.
Because there were so many great things.
So this episode begins with Boimler and Ransom walking into the mess hall, and Ransom just saying, "Hey, you're back in the system, but if there's ever a problem, call Billups," which leads to a B plot of Boimler being unable to access, even replicator or doors in this episode, and that makes for a really good conclusion at the end.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, the fact that he gets in line to order some pupusas is great, because I love pupusas, one, but the fact that we also see Jennifer, a couple people behind him, just like complaining about, hey, hurry it up, is great.
Yeah.
Right? Like the expressions on the other crew members behind him are perfect.
Shut up, Jen.
I like the food line. I think that's very realistic, because I would always wonder in Next Generation, they would people were in 10 forward. I guess that was the only place to eat. It seemed like there wasn't a separate cafeteria, but I'm glad they were showing at least lines for the replicator in this show. And that's why I like it so much, is because we get to see the practical things that we haven't seen before. Like, okay, great, everyone's in the mess hall eating and lounging, but how do they get it? There's a replicator, and there's a line for it. And Boimler was holding up said line.
Yeah, I feel like every now and then we got a taste of that in TNG. Like, we'd see Troy stand behind somebody waiting to order ice cream or something, then they're done, then she goes next or whatever. But you're right, they didn't really show like 5 or 6 people deep lines waiting for the replicators. That's probably because the Galaxy class is just so much bigger and has probably more than one eating location. So, like, they're just more spread out.
Well, the scene was set up with the kind of pressure when you are at Subway and the person behind you orders 6 footlongs all toasted.
Oh, I mean, it's definitely that feel, right? And the whole subplot for this of like Boimler not getting the computer's recognition is delicious. It's delightful. Anybody who's worked in tech or to IT knows that's exactly how it goes when you want access to a system for the first time. It's like, all right, so I've been working at this company for a week. When does my email finally start working properly? Or when does this system let me log in as root? Like, these things take time.
Tell me about it.
But that's better than like somebody leaving the business and their credentials still working.
True. And we've all seen that as well, and
Right.
that's terrible.
Right.
Why is
Like
this
that
person
time
still?
that Riker and Picard got kidnapped in Gambit, and Riker's command codes, he was still using them, even though everybody was like, they're not going to work, right? He's like, yes, counselor, he does know that. Take the shields down. Thank you, Data.
Well, that's because the IT guy on the ship who's responsible for Active Directory isn't doing his job and moving that user to the for one, disabling the access, two, moving him to the disabled container, which we all should have an AD.
It's Data's job as ops officer to just push that little Riker in Active Directory, Picard in Active Directory. And gosh, I wish it was that easy in today's culture, but the directories aren't all synced here.
So then we move into a small scene with Devon Tendi talking about how, or rather rushing through her meal so she can go and do more work above and beyond what's expected of her, just because she wants a promotion. Because another ensign who does less than her was promoted in before her. And I think that that's a very interesting thing that we don't see very often in Star Trek. We don't see much of a pushing for a promotion, bucking for a promotion kind of mentality very often. We saw it a little bit with Picard alternate universe form when he was wearing the blue uniform and he wanted to get a promotion or go into command. But besides that, we don't really see much of people being like, well, when's my promotion? Well, I need a promotion. It's been 3 years. And I would have expected it from Harry Kim, of all people.
Laughs in Harry Kim.
That makes sense.
Or cries in Harry Kim. Oh, he did once. There was, it was when Tom Paris was,
Demoted?
after he was demoted, and then when he was getting promoted again, and Harry said something about having one of those, like the rank pip was in one of those cases you give to someone when you're proposing and you open it up and there's a ring. It was something like that with his re-promoted rank pip. And Harry Kim made some quip about him getting one left for him. And Janeway just kind of chuckled, hand waved it. And then suddenly the episode of the week, villain of the week started. So anyway, I digress.
Mm-hmm. I've got Renzo frozen.
Oh,
no, you're fine on one computer, but on the other ones, you're frozen.
Well, that's because, Bag, you have too many computers.
That's probably true.
So after that, hope if you need it, you can reconnect or whatever. But
no, it's okay.
Cool. After that, we hear that the reason why Ensign Escher got the promotion is because she cured Captain Freeman's Torellian death syndrome, which is pretty wild. And got an on-the-spot promotion. So that fits with what we've seen in Star Trek throughout before. Somebody does something awesome, they do get a promotion. I think that happens to Ensign Rowe at one point.
Well, I know it happened to Kirk in the Kelvin timeline.
True, the Kelvin timeline's a wild place.
Went from cadet to captain in a day and a half?
And then we get the real twist of the episode. Shax is back.
Right.
What is that about?
Well, remember Shax died at the end of last season, right?
Well, I know that. Yeah. Right.
Well, in Star Trek, people... So I've had an argument with one of my best friends for years now about how Star Trek never kills a main character. And every time I give him an example of when we do, he finds a reason why that one doesn't count. So Yar didn't count because she wasn't in more than a season of episodes, or Data doesn't count because it happened in a movie, not in the show, and so forth and so on. Yeah. He's got a bullshit excuse for every single one I find.
You got to defriend this guy.
No, he's great. But the point is, this scene was written for this friend of mine because Shax was a main character that got killed, and now he's back. So Star Trek doesn't kill main characters again.
And it's such an inside joke in this episode.
It's great.
They don't even really want to explain it. No, he's back. This is what happens.
I mean, we get a little bit of an explanation when they finally start laying it out in the turbo lift to Rutherford later in the episode, but we'll cover that when we get to it.
Okay.
Well, the best part of this whole thing was that a friend of mine sent me a recipe for hot kiwi ketchup.
Ew.
It actually looks really good, and I'm going to make it.
Hot
Let me
kiwi
know.
ketchup?
Yeah. And it's jalapeno kiwi, spicy kiwi ketchup. Good stuff.
You're a braver man than I am.
Let me know how it goes, and if it's good, I'll try it.
Can do.
You can be the guinea pig.
Okay.
What was the thought process that led to, I should mix ketchup and kiwi and put some hot sauce in it? See, silence. I killed the room.
That's just what Shaxx ordered, and that drives Rutherford into a crisis spiral.
And then we go back to Boimler, still trying to get some food, and he gets a bonsai tree, which is great because he settles with it. He's like walking off to go eat the bonsai tree.
It's basically garnish, is what he's going to have for lunch.
Listen, we all put parsley on things, right? Like that. It's not that different.
Yeah, parsley's good.
Okay, so then we get to the main A plot of the episode, which is in sick bay, when Tendi is there wiping down bio beds and talking about tuning things up in there. Dr. Tiana calls her into her office, and like Tiana's like scratching herself, like kind of freaking out. Seems like she's like coming down off some kind of high or something like that. That's kind of the vibe that you get from it. And she asks her to do a special mission for her, off the books, super private. Go pick up a family heirloom from a storage unit on Quaylor 2. And we've seen Quaylor 2 before, and we know that it's a seedy place. But she specifically says, I'm sending my lowest ranking officer who asks the fewest questions. And so do it fast, it's personal, and keep it private. So that's so far all we know about what's going on there. So Dag, do you want to tell us about what we know about Quaylor 2 before?
Yeah, Quaylor 2 was featured in Unification, where a Vulcan shuttle had been mysteriously stolen from the lot there, and that prompted the Zakdorn keeper of said field to go a little berserk when he found out that one of his ships was missing, because he keeps such meticulous records. In any case, that Vulcan shuttle was destroyed by Romulan forces when they plot to invade Vulcan was uncovered.
Which included 3 shuttles, apparently. They weren't going to get a whole lot done, I don't think. Now, Quaylor 2, I know I recognized the name, but for some reason, I was thinking about, and I know now that I say it, I got the name wrong, but what was the planet in Picard that they went to that was basically Las Vegas in space? Looked a lot like...
Freecloud.
Oh, that's right. Freeport. Something like that. Freecloud.
Freecloud, that's what it was, yeah.
Gotcha.
Stardust City.
But this was another seedy city with a lot of...
we can clearly tell that Quarks has now franchised out, because there are at least 3 different Quarks franchises in Star Trek by this time. 2399 is a little bit in the future, but there was that. There was a Vic Fontaine. There was the what were the name of the Zebulon sisters that we chewed out about last season?
Oh, God, I don't remember.
They said chew, and I cried.
Yeah.
But before we get all the way to Quaylor 2, Boimler has a surprise for us. Renzo?
So, Boimler is really excited to be meeting somebody who's making a guest visit to the ship, a certain full lieutenant Tom Paris. So he got at least a promotion in grade after they arrived back from the Delta Quadrant, which is good for him. And he shows off his series of dishes or plates that have all of the crew members, and they're all signed. And now he's got his last one, his Tom Paris plate, which he needs signed as well.
I love the collector's plates.
Shiny
like,
Tom Paris plate.
Really?
So shiny.
But yeah,
Well,
the only other thing that we heard from it, or we got out of that scene, is that he overheard about the visit from Shaxx, which sends Rutherford into another like spiral of panic about like how is Shaxx still alive. Again, no explanation. And when he starts like wanting to ask about it, the other lower deckers are like, "You don't ask. They don't tell us things."
And everyone else isn't really bothered by it. Like,
Yeah.
this is just what happens, and we're not privy to why.
So this goes to a question that's come up in the fandom for many, many decades. It's this whole like, is the reason why all these crazy things happen because it's the Enterprise? Like, do other ships in Starfleet have like boring careers where they just run back and forth, nothing interesting happens? From what we're seeing on this show, no. Everybody has crazy experiences. Everybody has like semi-gods that show up and do things to them. Everybody comes back from the dead. And that's just life in Starfleet. And I think that's pretty cool.
I think there's a lot of room because you're right. That is something I've thought about before also, is what is it like for all of these other ships in Starfleet? And are they also having these accidentally going back in time or time traveling missions? Who's doing what? Because it seems like with the number of ships in Starfleet, let's just throw out a wild guess. I mean, are we talking several thousand ships in Starfleet in the 24th century or more?
My guess would have been around 10K, roughly.
Yeah.
Okay.
If you
All right.
factor in
That's
all the member worlds and their...
Oh, I'm not counting those. I'm just talking about Starfleet itself.
Well, but Starfleet encompasses all those member worlds. It's not just an Earth organization.
No, but Starfleet is the UFP's military and scientific exploration service, right? But we know that the individual worlds have their own small things, their own small defense forces and such.
They do,
right?
But
I'm just not counting those.
The Earth-centric designs can't be the only designs we see within Starfleet.
No, but we do see other ships of Earth-centric designs staffed entirely by crews of other races. The Taccumbra, I think, was one of them. The Intrepid in TOS, the one that had the Vulcans who played baseball in Voyager or in Deep Space Nine.
That was the Taccumbra.
Was that the Taccumbra? Okay.
Yeah. Well, if you remember, I had talked about this at one of our podcasts. Was that when the Federation was first starting? Of course, you already had Earth, Andoria, Vulcan, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Everyone had their own ship, military force, but then it started getting to a point where it was, let's pull all of our resources into the Earth designs because for whatever reason they have a knack for it or they have the facilities for it. Who knows? So basically everything was getting put into Starfleet. Now the other member worlds, they still had their things, but that wasn't the main point of their production, because as a member of the Federation, you had Starfleet, which was the military and exploration force, kind of like with NATO, how the US tends to be the military force of NATO, even though the NATO countries, they all still have theirs, but
Beta Canon actually has a good explanation for this, really. Like early on it's in the Enterprise novels, they discuss how in the formation of the Federation, the fleets of Earth, Vulcan, Tellar, and Andor all were mostly joined together, right? Each one gave a different duty. The former Imperial Andorian Guard were given the duty of border defense, military ships along the borders. They don't leave the borders. The Tellarite ships are giving logistical positions, so they staff things, they move things, they carry people around, vital in any kind of situation in interstellar space, right? The Vulcan ships were made primarily research ships and science ships, so scanning things, detecting things, but mostly trying to understand things within Federation space. And then the Earth ships were mostly put on the exploration duty routes, right? And as those fields developed, they kind of unified their design choices, even though the personnel still primarily remained in those duties. So the reason why explorer ships are mostly staffed by humans is just convention. The reason why defense ships would be mostly staffed by Andorians is just convention. It's not a rule or anything, but that explains why we don't see as many fully Andorian ships. It's because we don't spend time with ships on the Romulan border all that often. So
I could also imagine certain concessions being made for the UFP to come out where the IAG is a very proud organization and they're not going to want to be just custodians in an Earth-centric or a Vulcan-dominated fleet. So they want to have a say in defense. The Tellarites are really good with logistics and they don't want to be cut to just science and exploration duties. They want to have a hand on the way things are run.
Yep. Yeah, I thought that it was a very elegant solution.
Yeah, absolutely.
It makes sense.
So going back to the previous subject, though, Big J, you were saying, right, other ships in Starfleet. So I originally had the same thought, right? Voyager's original mission was pretty ho-hum. Go intercept this Maquis ship that's harassing some Cardassians, beat the Cardassians to get them, bring these Maquis terrorists back in. You're done. That's a pretty ho-hum mission, right? Not all that crazy.
Ladies and gentlemen, that's Tuvix in the background, squeaking on a squeaker toy.
He has a rainbow llama that he likes too.
Renzo's dog.
And
he likes his llama.
To include all non-binary people as well.
True. But yeah, so it's cool that they've got this pretty ho-hum mission. They get stuck in this crazy thing, and then they spend 7 years in the Delta Quadrant or whatever. But I think the point of this this discussion is showing us that, like, even on a ship like the Cerritos, which generally speaking is not doing anything particularly interesting, it's a second contact ship, they still know that, you know, crazy shit happens in space. People die, they come back. So what?
He's going to town on that toy.
I'm loving it.
It's just
It's the
it's
soundtrack
hilarious.
of the season.
Sorry.
So
Oh, don't be
Mariner,
sorry.
Tendi pitches to Mariner like a girls' trip because they've never hung out before.
I like that. I like the thought of them doing a girls' trip. Like,
This scene
why not?
passes the Bechdel test too, which is great.
What's a Bechdel test again?
So
Two
that's
women
when
talking to each other, not about a man, not about a relationship problem.
Okay.
yeah, this scene in particular I don't think does, because they do mention, like, don't what about with you and Rutherford? No, we're not. We don't want to go. But their trip itself does make the episode, I think, pass it. They have whole scenes where they don't talk about the guys at all.
Okay. Good.
Which
In
is
the,
good.
in the meantime, Boimler's wandering the ship trying to get to the bridge so he can get his plate signed. He runs into the door, and Jet's like, I could carry you over the threshold like a bride. Boimler's like, I don't need your help. And so Jet's like, fine. And Boimler gets stuck behind the door, and he decides to take a side conduit.
Jeffrey's tubes to the bridge.
Yep.
Why are there? I'm not even going to get into the thing about Jeffrey's tubes and why they're not just other hallways, but I know they're maintenance tubes. So what's the deal with the system not recognizing Boimler? Is it really just because he's?
Do you want my theory?
Yeah, let's hear your theory.
I think it's because this Boimler's a transporter clone.
I think it's actually that he's being fucked with by Mariner or someone who is more responsible or had some sort of thing, is just like hazing him. You left the ship and now you're coming back. Well, here's how you're going to suffer for a little bit until we settle you back in.
No.
It's just his crew members hazing him a little bit.
No, you know what it is? Now that he's back again, his his credentials haven't finished inheriting into all the folders of access, including the replicators and the doors. I don't know. I'm making stuff up now.
Just as much as we are. Cool. So we then have Mariner and Tendi arrive at Quailor 2, and Mariner notes it's an exciting planet, and it's a great place to do slushies, I think she mentions, or frosties, slushies. Yeah.
I got the slushy vibe.
Yeah.
Slushies, yeah. Ices, slushies. Mm-hmm.
But yeah, so they go to and they find that the vendor of the bank, or the guy who's holding onto this heirloom, is listening to a particular band. He's originally kind of off-putting, like he doesn't want to help them. Like, do you have the proper clearances? Do you have everything? But as soon as Tendi recognizes the music as being from a Klingon acid punk rock band, he softens up and helps them out, brings them their package. And it seems like it's a pretty cool little scene where Tendi connects with the alien who staffs the place.
I'm glad that there are still things like that in the future, that they talk about music, bands, genres of music.
You notice they talk about a Giktal here?
Is that the name of the band?
Tendi asks if this is Giktal, and he's like, yeah. And Giktal means to the death in Klingon, and it was a ritual that Worf gaslighted Ensign Cito Jaxa with in a little fight to get her to stand up for herself in the episode known as Lower Decks.
Lower Decks.
That's an excellent reference. I missed that. That's great.
Well, I think it's great that the show is showing you that in the future, things that we know now doesn't mean that they had to die out. There can still be bands and music and roadies, people that listen to this stuff, and it just, Star Trek kind of made it seem like in the future, after World War III or whatever, that very little of what we had, what was known before that, existed. Like, nobody watches TV anymore. There's no bands really. Are there still music tours? I mean, is there still a anniversary held of the Woodstock Festival? Just all the little things. It seemed like the little things kind of got sanitized away in the future. And
well, let's remember though, right? Like the settings that we're talking about. We're talking about essentially a ship in the U.S. Navy, deep, far away from home, right? Yeah,
Mhm.
in the real world, there are USO tours that bring bands to like military bases, but they don't show up on a ship that's deployed, right? And usually we're dealing with ships that are deployed. So, I get it. I agree with you. They definitely need to bring more like 20th century stuff back into the show, or references as well, like real ones, but it's expensive from a licensing perspective. I think that the Orville actually managed to do this really well,
Mhm.
where in like one of the very first episodes, they actually utilize like Real Housewives of New Jersey as an example of like the depravity of the 20th century or something, or the 21st century, right? Like, okay, cool. So they know that these things still exist, right? They don't actually have to do much with it, but and they also do have like essentially a USO concert tour show up on their ship that plays in their hangar deck, right? Like
True.
there are things that we can do to make the world make a bit more sense, but I can understand why it's easier to do on like an animated show like this versus in the live actions. Because yeah, acid punk rock is not something I know of. I don't know anything about it. I'm sure it exists and it has its devotees, but like you tell me that it's Klingon acid punk rock, and I'm like, cool, next. Right? Like I just don't it doesn't click with me at all, right? But when they have them doing things like playing Berlioz or having like the Beastie Boys, right? That stuff connects with me. I get that, but like, yeah, it's one of those like it's a fictional world. We got to have a list, a little bit of like a give them a little credit because they can't get licensing rights for everything.
Yeah.
Okay, fair enough.
Ooby dooby.
Yeah, that's a good one too.
Yeah.
So they carry this crate all the way back to the shuttle, and Mariner is just like super eager to know what's inside. Tendy's very reluctant. Mariner convinces her anyway. They open it up, and it's this disgusting Cation rubbing post. Just never been cleaned. It's this disgusting wooden Cation figure, wooden carved Cation figure that has been used as a rubbing, possibly scratching post. In
What the hell do
Doctor,
you think it was used for besides scratching? The way you said that was,
Mariner literally tells us what it was used for. An important cultural sex toy from the past.
Yep.
oh, please don't remind me.
You asked, bro.
I know.
Now, the thing looks really cool. It looks like a totem pole. It looks cool. Like, it is a neat idea that the Cation culture still uses something like a cat scratching post like this. But it's cool world building. I'll give them that.
Mhm.
But yeah, the thing looks disgusting.
Yeah. It's just totally grossed out. And they're laughing hard about it. And they have their little laugh. And then they go to put it away. And then Mariner, for some reason, does this awkward motion of stepping over the box instead of just gently putting back in the box, and snaps its head off.
So, yeah, she brought it on herself because that was very clumsy.
This
If
could
you
have
ask
been an
me.
easy trip. I figure Mariner's running spy ops, and she needs to go visit her friend on the next planet they go visit. Starbase Earhart.
Mm. Another location that we know well from Trek history.
Yep. Do you remember the episode?
Not the name of it, but it's the one where no, it is actually it's Samaritan Snare where it's first mentioned.
Nope.
Yeah, it is. That's where we know that Picard gets stabbed by the Nausicaans. He tells the story to Wesley Crusher on the shuttle flight.
Well,
He's right.
stumped. Good job. Thanks. I was going with Tapestry, which showed
Yeah,
that
when it
encounter,
shows
but
it,
okay.
yeah.
No, it's nice that 30 years ago they were thinking about the same level of continuity there.
Hmm.
So they head on over to Starbase Earhart. But I think we get a click of Boimler in the tubes first, don't we?
We do. I thought we did have the.
Oh no, it's Shaxx being stalked by Rutherford to engineering.
Well, because Shaxx being back is really bothering Rutherford. It would bother me too, to just see someone that you saw or that you knew died.
I wish Shaxx had been somewhat more sympathetic instead of just very gruff towards Rutherford. And my brain's like, on one hand, it would have been really interesting to acknowledge him. Hey, baby bear, how you doing? But on the other hand,
That's what he does.
But on the other hand, he just is like Rutherford. And then, because we talked about what happened later, and if you had the captions on when you watch the episode, you get way more description about what happened to Shax. But he's very apathetic towards Shax and interested in making sure that him and Billups have whatever time they need for racquetball, which is a popular game that Bashir and O'Brien played a bit.
True. Yep. Good
But
reference. Good point.
He does do the baby bear thing when he finally corners him in the turbo lift, though. So I don't know. Shax may just be one of those like gruff, not super tender people. So
I need more DS9 inspired Shax occupation flashbacks. You remember they did that for
Kira a couple times. Yeah.
And Shax is definitely old enough to have been in the trenches during the occupation. It's only been 12 years, 13 years since the occupation.
Absolutely. Mm-hmm.
Ooh, give me Shax occupation flashbacks for 1,000, LeVar.
Well, if we had, if this was a show about the main crew, we probably would have gotten those. Because Billups obviously knows what happened to Shax, and Billups is like, "Are you doing okay, man? Like, how you doing, big guy?" Like, kind of stuff, right? Like, they're clearly a tight-knit bunch. Cool. But they don't tell us those things. They don't tell the lower deckers that, so we don't find out either as viewers. Maybe he's overcome his trauma of the occupation.
And then another crew member comes up and asks about it, and everybody shames him, and he gets reassigned. Nope, you're out.
Yeah, that was actually one of I see the humor in it. I love the humor of the scene. It's very well done. But that's like one of the least Starfleet-y things I can think of, right? Like, usually just asking a question doesn't get you thrown out of an apartment.
True, but I also think that serves to justify just how serious of a question that was. Because we had Rutherford asking to be reassigned, like, in one episode for probably within a day. He has to be in all 4 departments. And every single time it was like, "Congratulations, we're glad you're asserting yourself and choosing your destiny." And here it's like, "What have you done?"
Well, I'm glad that they're making a big deal out of it without getting any answers.
Yeah.
Instead of just trying to sneak it in or slide it in or just make it a quick wave off explanation. I don't mind that they're really making it like this is something that is a thing, and even asking about it it's like the Omega Directive. I'm sure there's probably some kind of directive in play about the return of a crew member or senior officer that was I don't know, that was dead. I'm sure there's some kind of protocol that you don't ask questions about it, or you end up in like the boogeyman's basement. They lock you away. They ship you to a listening post in Alaska or something similar to that.
The farm. They send you to the farm.
The farm.
And then they're just like, "So Rutherford, what did you want to ask?" And he's like, "Do you play racquetball?" Yes.
Yeah, it was not a very convincing lie, but it's pretty realistic.
Well, he had just seen what happens when you ask questions like that. Head on over to Starbase Earhart, the aforementioned Samaritan snare and tapestry reference, and Mariner's Kelpian friend is assuring her that he can totally fix it. He just needs 50 bars of latinum, 50 strips of latinum?
It was strips.
Was that a Kelpian?
It was. It's confirmed offline that was a Kelpian. I don't think the art here really does it justice, but now we have seen for the first time our first 24th century Kelpian.
I did not catch that at all. Huh.
I thought that the art style was supposed to look familiar to something, but I couldn't place it. So now that you say that, okay. Yeah. Well, and with the art style, I think that there have been some races we've seen where because of the art style, there might be a little bit of confusion or ambiguity as to what race it is. I know that there have been a couple, and I think we've talked about it, that maybe could have gone either way. So there's
Yeah.
that.
I mean, I think that the Tellarites in this show look more like a walrus mixed with a dwarf than they do like traditional Tellarites, but that's okay. They're still cool.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm just really glad they don't have the dead-eyed Tellarite look from TOS.
Oh
Yes.
God.
That's just
Yeah. Well, because we have a budget now.
But an animated budget. So Mariner's like, hey, we can earn that much money. Let's play Domjot with these Nausicaans. Well, here we go again.
I remember Domjot.
It's a great Tapestry reference
It's
again.
like
Mm-hmm.
it's like playing pool on a mini golf course. That's how I see Domjot. There's little
I was thinking-
obstacles and little bumpers, but you're shooting a ball with a stick.
Yep. Well, they had Domjot in, where have we seen it before? Wasn't it in Unification Part 1 when they're at that bar? Because we were just talking about that episode when they were.
That was
No,
Gambit.
no, Gambit. Yep,
I don't
you
think
got
they
me
did
soon
Domjot
as.
in the Gambit. We've seen it a couple of times, but obviously this reference is very much a Tapestry Samaritan snare. Someone's going to get their heart stabbed, maybe.
So I was thinking of it more as being like pinball, but with like a pool stick. That's kind of how I was seeing it. But yeah, it's
Okay.
cool to see it done in this setting too.
Kind of, sort of, yeah. And the Tellarite's like no fighting, even though Mariner has apparently convinced these Nausicaans that she's not so great at Domjot when she actually is pretty okay at it. And in order to make things fair, she makes Tendi shoot. And right as Tendi's about to shoot, the Nausicaan pulls a dagger out, and Mariner has to subdue him, forcing Tendi to get a hole-in-one and winning the game. But then
I
the
think it was a lucky
Nausicans
shot.
start some shit.
Definitely a lucky shot.
It's like in
Cool.
pool when we have that rule,
Oh.
you're not playing crap shoots. Like if you make a shot that obviously wasn't meant to be made, then the other person gets their turn.
I did love the fact that Tendi was very defensive about not using her pheromones to try and influence the Nausicaans and others. But that was a cool reference to like the Enterprise history of female Orions using their pheromones to control people.
Yeah.
So good callback there.
I didn't
Very
realize
nice.
the pheromones were controllable like that to that level.
Yeah, they can use them to influence people like they did on the Enterprise episode.
Right. No, but
Or
I
Archer.
meant being able to
Turn it off.
right, turn it on, turn it off.
It's probably kind of like how Deltans do it. You know how they have that like touch telepathy, the Deltans, that's kind of like orgasmic or whatever. They probably train themselves not to do it normally. Same thing with the Orions who join Starfleet. They take like a vow of celibacy equivalent so that they don't like mess with everybody's day.
Okay. Right.
I'm
Yeah.
down with that. And the Nausicaans destroy the head of this totem in retribution for losing, which starts a fight, and Mariner throws all of their earnings in their face just to escape alive.
And with their
Meanwhile-
hearts intact too.
Yeah, fortunately, that's what Picard should have done, just thrown the money at them. Boimler is exhausted as heck, having climbed several decks to get to somewhere else inside the ship's innards. I think this was supposed to be like a static intake manifold or something like that. And right as he is walking through that space, our hero, Nicholas Locarno, shows up on the bridge.
No, that's Nick.
Oh.
Nick Locarno's in prison somewhere.
Oh, right. Who's this
Good
guy?
reference.
What's he from? Tom Paris in
He's from Voy.
Nemesis.
He's from Voy.
He's from Voy.
Voy.
That's right. So our Voy character, Tom Paris from Voy, who spent all that time on Voy while Voy was in the Delta Quadrant, now shows up in a bristly new First Contact era uniform. Very nice. The gold shoulder or the gray shoulders.
Real quick, you guys do know the reason why Tom Paris is called Tom Paris and not Nicholas Locarno like what was originally planned.
I do.
They didn't want to pay the writer of the original episode every single time they had him on screen.
Yep.
Yes.
Just money again.
Always about money.
Always about the money. Hey, Kayshawn shows up here for the first time since his last episode, which was the last episode, but he has no lines here, which is... what are they going to do with Kayshawn now that Shax is back? Like, who gets to be chief of security?
Good cue. Good cue. I was wondering the same thing the whole episode. I was like, well, if Shax is back, what happens to Kayshawn? Because I liked having a Temerian on the ship.
Yeah.
Yeah. I don't know. I don't know where they're going to put him or what they're going to do with him, but yeah, it would be a shame if he just like kind of slowly went away, because he's a good character. They're both good characters, but there's really only one position available, and I hope they don't fall into the kind of the thing that happened with Worf and Yar. If you really think about it, from the first season of TNG, it was kind of like, all right, well, they both sort of serve the same purpose. One's the
like Worf was the con officer.
well, yeah, he kind of
Worf and Geordi
doubled in
were
there.
little JGs in red uniforms.
I always took Yar as the sheriff and Worf as the deputy.
Yeah.
Now I want a fistful of Tasha's.
Oh yeah.
That would have been a great episode. Instead of it being Data's, they were Data's memories of Tasha manifest in the Western program.
Oh my God.
Perfect.
Okay, I would have gone with it.
Yeah, that seems good.
So,
But no, so Tom Paris shows up on the bridge and he wants to, drive the Cerritos a little bit. And Captain Freeman is like, have at it. Well, turning on the engines means that the place where Boimler suddenly was is no longer very safe. So he tries to do an emergency shutdown, but the computer again refuses to listen to him because unrecognized input. So he hides himself into like another little shoebox, essentially, to try and survive it, keeping his plate. He drops his plate outside. The plate gets very hot. He pulls the plate back in, burns his fingers, and so forth and so on. So yeah, we've got Boimler slapstick comedy for the day.
He's not having a good day. That's what it amounts to.
Boimler / Gollum climbing around these vents. So flashback over to Mariner and Tendi. Ta'ana checks in, is like, "Where are you?" And they're like, "We're on the way." And she's like, "Get here fast." And Tendi's kind of faking it there. Tendi's like, "We're screwed. This totem is jacked, and I don't know what we can do about this."
Oh. I wanted to mention a uniform thing to you, Dag. Do you think it's interesting that we're seeing both the first contact uniform side by side with the Cerritos' own unique uniform? Because that's the same thing that we saw in Discovery Season 2 when we saw the Enterprise pull up the Discovery and we saw two different uniforms, same fleet, side by side like that. I kind of think this is a good world building thing because it just shows you that there might be some either captain's choice or fleet's choice or some kind of distinction between the different groups so that not everybody has to wear exactly the same uniform and it's kind of fits.
I think if we were going to organize the fleets into what we had talked about earlier, where there's a tactical fleet, there's a science fleet, there's a exploration fleet. Obviously we've got our second contact fleet. But I think what would happen is in a time of maybe combat or something like that, where you need to be able to quickly visually assess a situation and establish a hierarchy, even if you're a captain on the second contact fleet, you're probably still deferring to the tactical captain on site. If you're logistics or science, depending on what the nature of the mission is, it's very easily to look around and defer to who should be responsible for this. If a tactical fleet shows up during a second contact support mission, we're deferring to the second contact commander on site.
Well, it reminds me of on DS9. they had the DS9 uniforms. I'm talking about the first 4 seasons. They had their DS9 uniforms, but you still had officers that were coming on board, especially from starships, that had their TNG style uniforms. And then when Cisco went to Earth with Odo to do their a briefing and training about changeling infiltration, well, Cisco was changed into his TNG excuse me, TNG style uniform for that. So there's obviously like some kind of excuse me, a positional thing that is happening with uniforms. And going back to Discovery, that is, I'm yeah. The best I can say is that it seems like there is some kind of positional nature or um, organizational nature to the different uniforms. Even though we're all in Starfleet, it's not across the board. Everyone's in the same uniforms. It seems like the deep space arm has a different. Well, no, never mind. Let me back that up. I don't know what the demarcation line is for the different uniforms, but apparently there is some organizational nature to it. There is definitely a reason behind it.
Yeah, that's
Don't
the
know
same
what
thing
it
I got
is.
out of it. That's the same thing I got out of it. We definitely know that there's some sort of distinction to it. Maybe it's captain's preference, maybe it's fleet's preference, maybe it's duty bound, whatever. But there is going to be some level of interaction between crews wearing different uniforms. We saw it in Deep Space Nine. We saw 3 uniforms in one episode of Deep Space Nine, which I thought was great. We saw the Deep Space Nine color scheme, we saw the TNG color scheme, and we saw First Contact uniforms like the very next episode at one point. So like,
Mm-hmm.
it's great. I'm a fan. It makes sense. It builds the universe more, and it makes the Cerritos consistent with the rest of Trek in that sense.
Yeah.
It's just kind of a off-putting or a neat seeing Tom Paris in the well-known First Contact gray bars uniform, and then everybody around him is in the Cerritos. So.
Well, even in our own military, within one branch, let's just say the Army, aren't there? I mean, they're not one homogenous uniform wearing. Now, I'm not real well versed in that, but if you take Army, Navy, Air Force, Marines, just within the one, do any of them have the different uniform styles
Yeah,
for what? Well, of course, you're going to have whatever uniform you wear when you're, say, deployed in some kind of combat situation, and then the people that are in the back office are going to have something that looks different. So I would take the uniform style that the Cerritos has is more of your back office administrative uniform, and the ships with the first contact style uniforms, or the officers with the first contact style uniforms, are kind of more of
the line.
the line. Yes,
Yeah.
the front line, the ones that are going to be the ones if there's a situation, any kind of situation,
That's fair. Yeah, no, that makes sense.
especially combat oriented.
Yeah.
Those are the ones you're going to see.
But yeah, in the U.S. military, though, every branch has its own uniforms, both their wartime, peacetime, office duty uniforms. Each one's different, and then depending on where you're deployed, you will also have differences in uniform. So if you are in like a desert location, your uniform is different than if you're in the Arctic, right? There are
Mhm.
differences there, so it makes sense. Same thing seems to fit here. So yeah, I'm a fan. All right. Did you have anything else you wanted to add on this one, Dag?
No.
Cool. Okay. So after that, we go to a scene of Rutherford trying to focus on his work again, right? Or no, wait, do we have the?
Isn't Tendi telling us that we have to go to a pirate outpost for some reason?
Yeah, no, I skipped the scene. You're right.
So we have to
So
go
we
to a pirate
have-
outpost for some reason.
Well, Tendy's not really being very forthcoming with why. She's just like, I have a cousin who can fix this.
Everyone always has
Well,
that
and
cousin.
it's right after we're not all pirates and everything. Oh, hey, there's a pirate outpost nearby.
My cousin's a pirate. He might be able to help us with this.
So yeah, they set course for this pirate outpost, but they have to make sure that Mariner has the right tone for this, so they give her an Orion overhaul and make her green. And
She looks good in green.
And then Boimler is
She
worming
does.
it through an access tube just above the bridge. Still tries to getting to the bridge. And then, Rutherford is scanning with a new TR-88.
Yep.
And what's happening here?
So Rutherford has a bit more of like a crisis again. He's trying to figure out like what happened. How did they get brought back to life, right? Was it a transporter accident? Was it the Borg? Is the mirror universe? What's the deal with DePaul's hair that one year? Like, Is it the Nexus? Is it always Christmas? Like they go through a whole litany of crazy little theories for a second there as
A
to
Dyson sphere.
yeah, it's
There's-
great. It's a ton of references.
It's really interesting what some of the costumes here. Like you've got Shax dressed up like Riker was in True Q.
like Abe Lincoln.
Well, I was gonna say Abe Lincoln, but the collar and the way the tie is, it makes it look a lot more like when Amanda flashed Riker to that outdoor gazebo thing, and then like made him fall in love with her for 3 whole seconds.
Yep.
Okay.
And then there's an original series. He's in an original series red shirt uniform.
He's in an Enterprise uniform.
He's got an Enterprise uniform. One of the contacts said that right next to frickin' Rutherford, he's in Neelix's. He's in a
The
Neelix
weird
outfit.
rap thing.
Like,
Yeah.
what the?
I'm gonna have to
heck?
rewatch this scene. I missed some of those. And wasn't there also a reference made to Genesis planet? Like,
Mhm.
did he get Genesis
They
torpedoed?
They talked about him getting Genesis or time vortex or time ribboned or Nexus, and then Boimler was like, yeah, the time ribbon Nexus, it's the same thing.
I love the whole fact that it shows us that even the legend of Genesis, which was deeply classified and very secretive in its time, has become so well known that a bunch of ensigns on a middle of nowhere ship know about it, to the detail that they know, like, oh, that's how they brought back Spock. That's one
Yeah.
way that somebody could get brought back to life.
Well,
That's really cool.
and every way that they have mentioned is literally a way that somebody has been brought back from the dead. Mirror Universe, Giorgio.
Mhm.
Okay,
What
okay,
about the
let's-
microscopic civilization and
Let's
the
do a
Dyson
breakdown.
sphere?
Let's do a breakdown then. Let's do a breakdown. Okay. First of all, the mirror universe is how he brought back Giorgio after she
Mhm.
died. The Borg bringing back Picard as Locutus, because everybody thought he was gonna die at the end at the season 3 finale, and the season 4 they brought him back.
Sure.
I don't really know the Archer thing, not really getting that one. The red shirt vibe, that's obviously a reference to that one ensign on TAS who literally died in one episode, and then the next episode he's just back fine again.
Well, what's the deal with T'Pol's hair for that 1 year?
I
What
didn't
was
get
the deal
that
with
one.
T'Pol's hair for that 1 year?
I think that
I
was
think
just
it was
some
the
very
first year.
right. Yeah, I think it was just some very random.
Just a random
humorous
comment.
line.
But
was
the
good.
Dyson sphere is how Scotty came back.
Yep.
But not being brought back together by a
Just-
microscopic
it's-
civilization,
it's-
though.
Well, okay, but the microscopic civilization are the ones from home soil. Those little ugly bags of mostly water, the little nano crystals.
Yes.
Uh-huh. Yep.
Yeah,
Yep.
they're the nanites. They're the micro civilization. Don't really know what Neelix has to do with resurrection or with
Tuvix.
Yeah.
Ooh,
Okay. Tuvix, that
okay.
could work.
Yeah.
And I just woke him up.
Oh.
He had fallen asleep.
You
I
know,
said his
and,
name.
that could be a Moriarty thing. You could be right there. Instead of Abe Lincoln,
Oh, it could be
it could
Moriarty.
be a Moriarty thing, and Moriarty being real in the second episode that he comes back in.
Yep, I can see that. That definitely could be Moriarty.
Very interesting. All the different ways to make a Shax. Love Shax, baby, love Shax.
But yeah, that was a neat scene. I liked it. It shows just how freaked out Rutherford is by this whole thing, that he's coming up with every possible explanation, but he just has to know. So he bolts out the door to try and find him,
Yep.
to find Shax.
One, of course, with estimated 10,000 or whatever ships in Starfleet, that just takes us right back to the Enterprise can't be the only ship that has all these
Weird things
crazy
happening.
things happening.
Yep.
There has to be another one that has had unexplained people coming back to life or this or that or another. So
I mean, so just as a simple example, right? The second Galaxy class ship that we ever discover is the USS Yamato, right?
yes.
You know that
Mhm.
their captain was much more in the archaeology bent than Picard was in the early seasons, and he found Iconian stuff. He dug so deep into Iconian stuff that his ship got overwritten by Iconian software and blown the fuck up, right?
Yep.
That's a level of getting deep into something that no other ship we've ever seen has done. The Enterprise D followed along and tried to replicate it, but they didn't even get as far. So yeah, I think it's a reasonable assumption that every ship in the fleet has some hell of a great time stories to tell us all.
Yeah. They should.
Well, and it's too bad we don't have like 6,000 Star Trek shows to follow all of those ships.
Oh my God.
Too
Can you
bad for
imagine?
sure.
Can you imagine doing podcasts and all that? Forget it.
Just do groupings.
My brain.
Yeah, you
I
hurt
like
my
to
brain.
think I'm good at this, but I can barely handle like the 5 episodes we have going. Series. We've got so many series coming up, guys. All right, so we get Mariner and Tendi at the Orion pirate outpost, and they are dressed up like Orion pirates, and they've got this totem secured, and they're supposed to be taking it to Tendi's contact that turns out to be some cousin of hers who is totally deferential to her because in Orion culture, the women still apparently seem to have their matriarchal society going on. They call her the mistress of the winter stars or something like that, the mistress of the winter constellation.
Winter constellation. Yep.
Which Orion is a winter constellation as viewed in the northern hemisphere on Earth.
Oh, I didn't know that.
So,
good catch.
Kaboom.
I want to bring up
Orion
some.
kind of beats this dude up, or Tendi kind of beats this dude up. Get it done.
One more notable thing we kind of glossed over a second ago is there has been a little bit of interpersonal conflict at this point between Mariner and Tendi over little things on the shuttle, like we should have never done this. This is all your fault, etc. The blame game is starting, so there's definitely some tension between the two of them. But they're still friends. They're still trying to work together on this.
Oh yeah.
And then there's a little bit more of it when they're on this Orion base, when the cousin calls her Divana, and Mariner's like, Divana, is that your oh no, that's my first name. You know my first name. And they just kind of butt some heads about that too.
There's something I want to bring up with you guys because I just want to get your take, your opinion on this. Now, to give some background info, we have seen that Star Trek generally makes every race and culture pretty homogenous besides themselves. All the Klingons are generally within the same look. Vulcans, Andorians, etc., etc.
There's that great meme. Infinite diversity and infinite combinations, same haircut for 300 years.
Right.
They're planets of hats. This is the planet of hats. This is the planet of deserts. This is the planet of water. And that's just how they go.
Right. So when you get to for example, the Orions, Cardassians, Nausicaans, you have the same color. All the Orions are green. Mm-hmm. All the Andorians are blue. So you're going to an Orion base or planet, and they have to take Mariner and put some green face on her to fit in. So it sounds like Renzo kind of knows where I'm going with this. Now I'm not saying that I overthought it at the time, and I'm not saying I'm overthinking it now. But to me, that part kind of comes off as Renzo, I have to take you down to Harlem. We have to try to get something fixed, but I got to put some black on you because you're white and you're not going to fit in unless we do that.
Right, but Harlem is not as racist as the Orions are, right? Like the Orions clearly here don't like humans, don't trust humans, don't welcome humans on their area, right? So getting into costume and fitting in makes sense. Now, one point I do want to point out, though, is if you just look at the screenshots, even the ones on Cygnus, you can tell that there is more than just one shade of green here. Tendi is this very bright, vibrant green.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Mariner is like a forest green. The other Orions are like olive or paisley or mint colors, whatever. They're all different shades of green. To us, green is green because we don't look at green as like a color that matters for skin color, right? But to them, those might be huge differences, right? Like they might be able to know, oh, Tendi's from such and such region because of her color, and that guy, because of his hair color being this thing, clearly from that region in the lowland, so he's lowborn, right? Like, we don't get that because we just don't see it, we don't know it, but it's kind of a jump to say that they're all green. Same thing with the Orions, or not with the Orions, with the Andorians, right? Like, we've seen many a different configuration for Andorian antennae, right? Like, that could be their same thing. Picard did a really good job of the show of showing us how Romulan appearance differences are tied to geography. Same thing here, right? Like just cut them some slack, right? They're not just going to sit there and be like, well, Orion's of this shade are from this region, Orion's from that shade are from that region. As much as I would enjoy that, I think it'd probably kill a scene.
Right. Okay. So we're not seeing in your opinion, in the show, we're not seeing the 24th century version of blackface or Orion face.
We certainly are seeing it, right? But it's not done in a way that I would consider like objectionable.
Well,
it'd be more like this. Let's say you have a special operations team of Navy SEALs, right? And some of the members of the Navy SEALs team are women, and they have a mission in Pakistan or like a conservative part of Saudi Arabia. They're going to go in burqa. They may not be Muslim, but they're going to go in burqa so that they can sneak around and not be noticed that way, right? The men might have to wait in the hotel room until the women come back with information or some equivalent thereof, right? This is the only way that they can do the mission.
Okay.
And I mean, and another thing, if we're going to talk about, if we're going to try to like blur that line of the distinction between one thing Star Trek is well known for, which is doing all the cosmetic surgeries to make their undercover operatives look like another species. Yeah, there's definitely, I don't know, it feels like there would be a fine line between trying to determine what constitutes Romulan face, as we've seen in Unification,
right,
and at least for Earth audiences, the more sensitive subject of what could be called interstellar blackface.
Right. Well, and the reason I bring this up is because with Romulans, Klingons, Cardassians, there's very distinct facial features or ridges or eyebrows, whatever it is that you have to do to fit in. Apparently with Orions, for that, all you've got to do is do the oh my God, what was the name of the movie? I believe it was 90s, maybe late 80s. The guy that Jerry curled up his hair. He's a white guy. Jerry curled up his hair, put some brown complexion on him.
Singer.
Was it the jazz singer?
I mean, it was in the Jazz Singer. The main character was caught doing blackface in what was supposed to be a black person's club, and it got smeared.
On. I think I seem to remember C. Thomas Howell being in this, and it was. I'll look it up. You guys go ahead and talk amongst yourself. But that's kind of the same thing I was thinking is we're not talking about having to add forehead ridges or nose ridge or the Romulan brow. It's literally the only feature you're changing is you're changing your skin color.
Yeah, I think that may just be a reality to the fact that Orions were created in the original series, and the only distinctive feature that was given to them was, externally at least, their skin color, right?
Sure.
They didn't have horns or a tail or anything. That was the only thing they had. So if you're going to use a character for that, that's the makeup you've got to work with, right? Yep. We've seen that Vulcans do have some differences in their own skin tone. We've seen clearly black Vulcans like Tuvok, and we've seen clearly pale ones like Spock, right? So there's definitely some variety there in their genetics, right? But Orions may simply not have that much variety other than the shades of green that I mentioned before. And so the only way that one can pass as an Orion to do something with Orions is to dip yourself in green.
1986, Soul Man. To achieve his dream of attending Harvard, a pampered teen poses as a young black man to receive a full scholarship.
That movie would not vibe at all today.
No, certainly not.
But I really appreciate that you brought
You get what
up.
I'm saying?
I think that's definitely a concern that that many of the audience would have looking at that and be like, whoa, they just let Mariner get away with that. There's a discussion to be had.
I think it's a good discussion to have. It's just, and I'm happy to have it with you guys. If you want to do like a special on like racial issues in Star Trek or something, that'd be a great, interesting special episode.
Yeah. Note for another episode. Okay.
Yeah, for sure.
I am just not qualified to really speak at anything more than a lowborn perspective on that.
Well, the thing is that you guys are right. There is, unfortunately for the Orions, that's all there is. You're right. There's no ridges, horns, antenna, tails, or whatever. It's just literally Orions are just shades of green. They don't have cloaks or burkas or.
So look at Osira, the character of Osira, right?
Yep.
Played by Janet Kidder, right? And Janet Kidder is gorgeous as an actress. She is brilliant in that role. She does it incredibly well.
Gorgeous as an Orion.
Mm-hmm.
I think she pulls off the green fantastically, right?
Yeah.
But you have, from a real world perspective, a white woman painted smothered in green doing that role, right? Vina was another white woman painted slathered in green playing green, right? And here we have Beckett Mariner, who's at least African American, playing it the same way, right? So it's not like we can really object if it, like, I think it would be performative of us to care about a character slathering themselves in green if we don't care about actors or actresses slathering themselves in green to pretend to be that role in the first place, right? Like, I don't know. I think it's weird. I get the concern. I do get the concern, but
not so much concern. Not that I was concerned. Is I thought it would be a good intellectual argument.
It is. No, it's discussion. Fantastic. I'm glad you brought it up. It's a fantastic subject, and I hadn't really put that much thought into it. But yeah, it's interesting. It's something. This is the beauty of Star Trek. It makes us think about these things.
Yeah.
Right. Yes. And Beyond Trek podcast, because we go beyond the episode and talk about social and political, economical, and racial issues.
So Mariner's green face starts to wear off. It starts to wear off, and people start realizing that she's not really an Orion, and that's a problem in the middle of a heavily militarized Orion encampment. Mm-hmm. So there's a mob. The Big Show-looking guys all start showing up. The bald Orions all start showing up, and they've got axes and swords and electrical hammer-looking things, and it's suddenly a problem.
It's so funny. Why do they have axes, swords, hammers? I guess why not, right?
If it kills you, it kills you.
True. Okay. All right. I stand corrected.
So they fight their way out of there, take the dummy and run.
Until they get to the building that houses their shuttle, which is like I wouldn't call it a skyscraper, but it's definitely like a tall building, and they have to like scale the outside to try and get back to the top.
The landing area that they took the elevator down to get there. Now they have to take that elevator back up.
Mm-hmm.
And long story short, they do. But they drop like half the totem to do it.
It was a sacrifice that Tendi made to save Mariner's life.
Right. So they
heartfelt moment.
They get there. They get back to the shuttle, and we flash back to Boimler, who is going a little nutty, trying to get through the ship. And he needs to try to open a hatch, and he can't. And the plate starts talking to him and cheering him up, and he starts rearranging isolinear cards, and the plate's like, "Aren't you really concerned about these gases? You're talking to a plate." And Boimler pulls like little like creepy, laughy, "Oh no, I really like them." Just very, very disturbing for him.
Or something like carbon monoxide poisoning, or something
or
like that.
Dilithium gas, for all we know. They never really say what it is, but yeah, it's just some exhaust building up there.
Yep.
So then we get to the most nerve-wracking scene in the episode when Rutherford finally catches up with Shax in a turbo lift. And we get the delightful little baby bear reference because, Shax has a heart. And he like breaks down like, "I'm sorry, it's my fault that you died, but I have to know what happened," and all that. And we finally get like this moment of Shax being like, "We're shielding you from this information. You don't want to know this information. This isn't good for you to know this information."
Yeah.
And Rutherford's like, "No, I still want to know. I definitely want to know." And so he tells him. And the subtitles were very clutch in this scene.
Yeah, they were.
You've
heard of the Black Mountain, right? No, but go ahead. First, you must scale to the top of the Black Mountain, and then you have to fight 3 faceless apparitions of your father to the death. It's just like, whoa.
The surviving father makes you eat your heart.
Whoa.
Oh, that's morbid.
One of the lines that we totally skipped past from the Orion moment was Mariner talking about how she dated bad boys. And Orion's like, I didn't know you had a type. And Mariner says, yeah, bad boys, bad girls, bad gender non-binary babes, ruthless alien masterminds, bad binars.
Yeah.
Just to toss all that out there. Canonically now, Mariner is
Pan.
I'm gonna go with Pan. Yeah.
Probably Pan.
Almost Omni.
Yeah.
Wow.
For sure. Really cool to see that in there. Cool and validating. Poor Shaq's still crying about telling Rutherford about his experience with the Black Mountain, and it just zooms in on Rutherford, and the screen darkens, and it's just terrifying.
Do you think we'll ever get exactly okay? You think this is a one-off, that there is something that happens, it is a very big deal, but that's where they're going to leave it? And
this could be Bajoran mysticism for all I care, right? The explanation itself doesn't matter. It's just that there is an explanation, and it's apparently like
we don't need to know.
Yeah, we don't need to know, and if we knew, it would drive us crazy, right? It's like, what's in the box? What's in the box? You never really know what's in the box the whole movie, and it's fine until like the end. That's cool.
I think I know what's in the box. I've got a theory on that, but that's a whole other different podcast.
Yep, that's our Pulp Fiction podcast slated.
And then we go to then we go to Boimler again in the Jeffries tube with the plate next to him, and now he's suddenly with his clothes all torn up. His hair is mussed and up. He's wrapped a band of cloth around his forehead. He looks like shit, and he's not having a good time. But he starts freaking out and yelling at the plate some more, and the plate starts talking back to him, and he like jams it into the isolinear rods, which causes a short, which causes him to fall through the floor and land right in the middle of the bridge.
Yep.
I was getting a Rambo vibe from that.
I didn't see that, but you're right. It does kind of look that way.
You know, I think it was First Blood Part 2 where no. Okay, I'm trying to think.
Rambo
There is a
2.
Rambo where he was, it was very much like this. He's out in the elements, trying to survive. He ends up putting the headband on him and then just goes to town. I think it might have been Part 2.
I have not,
because I believe the red band was even red.
But First Blood was an amazing film.
Yes, absolutely.
So he falls through the ceiling, lands in the bridge, and he yells out, "I do exist!" And then Tom Paris. And then Tom Paris looks at him and goes, "A K's on," and gets like a murderous look in his eyes, charges at him. And then Boimler just squeaks out, "Tom Paris, can I just say I'm a really huge fan? I have a plate for you." And then he screams as he's tackled.
Tom Paris beats him up for being a Kazon.
It was great.
That's Delta Quadrant PTSD right there.
Probably needs some more time with a good therapist.
Yeah. Counselor Troy.
So we're back on the shuttle, the Yosemite, and well, the totem is a mess. It's broken to chunks, and the Mariner and Tendi are just like not being friendly with each other. They're just accusing each other. They're just very disappointed in each other. It's a very tense scene, and they start trying to come up with like a last minute plan. And hilariously, Mariner does come up with a good plan. There's an explanation for what happened to the thing, where she gets to take all the blame, saving Tendi from any sort of blame for it at all. She decides to ram the Cerritos in a shuttle at full speed.
I think it was
bounce off the shields.
I love the sound of it. Just ting.
It was perfect.
Wasn't that a Roga Danar plot? Didn't he try to like go head first at the Enterprise and then fell off their sensors when they did something to respond to that?
Oh, I know this. I think so, because that was when they then beamed him onto the ship, and O'Brien and some other security guys were having a real hard time containing the dude until Worf and Riker showed up. I want to say I know that there was something like that, where there was a shuttle's going to ram the ship kind of thing, and I do believe that you are talking about that being Roga Danar from season 3 episode. Don't recall the name.
The Hunted.
The Hunted. Okay. I think that's what that's from.
Yeah.
I believe.
Well, I think it was still a really cool scene. I actually really like the effect, not just the sound effect, but like the visual effect of the Yosemite hitting the shield. It was perfect. It was like,
Bing.
yeah, it was so minuscule in comparison. And the shield's held. Any damage? Nope. Cool. And then they bring it aboard, and then Ransom is chewing out Mariner for her reckless driving.
I'm very surprised that when the shuttle tapped the shields like that a console on the bridge didn't explode.
Well, the front of the shuttle is all banged up now. The Yosemite's windows are cracked. The front end is all danged up. Yeah.
Pretty serious fender bender.
Oh yeah. I wonder
A serious fender bender for the shuttle. The ship didn't give a damn.
Yeah.
do they have airbags on the shuttle?
No, they definitely don't, because we see Tendi in the medical center immediately after on sickbay. So
Should have had her seatbelt on.
Yeah, she's actually getting served, treated in the hull of the shuttle itself. She's got a scraped knee, and Ta'ana is checking it out, telling her she's going to be fine.
oh, you're right.
Before Ta'ana picks up the box, dumps out all the remains of the stupid totem, and then carries the box back to sickbay. Where do you want to have the honor?
I don't have cats. I think it's more appropriate if it's you.
Oh, all right. As anybody with a cat knows, if I fits, I sits. And,
Yes.
Ta'ana jumps into this open box and immediately starts getting to business as a cat that, just can't not enjoy this box. Purring, eyes go straight to dilated. It's a great way to close out that bit of the plot there. And the Cerritos goes about its merry, and Mariner's
Wait,
in the brig.
you forgot to mention the excuse that Mariner gave for why they rammed.
Oh, yeah, because there was a bee that just appeared in the shuttle. A bee? How does a bee get into the shuttle from outer space, Mariner? Doc, it's not my fault, bee.
It's such a ridiculous line. She knows it, but it was great. But yeah, she covered for Tendi, explained that, and the doc doesn't care about the old post that was in the box.
Yep.
Yeah. Cats in boxes, that was the perfect ending. Like, it wasn't really about the totem. She wanted the box. And I'm trying to find it now. I'm not seeing it, but there was this picture I remember seeing. There was these people set up this one of those big cat houses things, like 3 levels of cat house, is all intricate thing. And the box that it all came in, the cat was in that box. So
yep,
they spent all this time putting this thing together, and the cat's in the box instead.
So then yeah, no, I've definitely seen stuff like that. That makes perfect sense. I mean,
this is funny. Now I'm looking at cats in boxes.
Tuvix thankfully doesn't have too much interest in boxes anymore, but when I first got him, he only wanted to sleep inside of a cardboard box.
Yeah, I don't know what it is about being in a cardboard box, but yeah, okay. Well, I have to stop looking at these cat pictures.
So we go to our last scene, and it is Mariner in the brig with Tendi and Rutherford just like chit-chatting with her, and they're just hanging out, sharing some bands.
So,
some songs.
I want to point out that these pads are all in real Klingon that can be translated on screen. And Twitter user Gach Yogi broke it down along with our favorite Klingon pop warrior. So a lot of these pads can translate, like one of them is Grethor Paradise instead of Gangster's Paradise.
So good.
Yeah.
One of these has to do with the caves of Nomad, which have been mentioned before. Another one translates to like They Challenge Me or They Cut Me, which was a song about the Klingon cutting and eating his own hand that had been mentioned to Tendi. Another one translates to group party meeting, so like big O party. Another one is like a Klingon insult, about the honorless. So like instead of Day of Honor, it's Day of the Honorless. And that just seems like a Klingon metal band. Day of Honorless. Would totally be down for that. I thought it was really cool that they took the time to actually make sense of these Klingon pads, and also point out the tradition of every single one of these bands, every single one of these albums is its own pad. It's not like it's not like an iPod that has all the songs on it. It's just 7 pads, and each one is a different album.
You have to have a pad for each document you're reading, because naturally there's no alt tab on
More
a pad.
fun that way. Like, why would you multitask on a pad? It's single use. Then chuck it back into the replicator. Get rid of the thing.
Yeah, no.
Because a table full of pads obviously makes it. That's how you look like you're busy.
Busy, of course. That's why I have like 88 tabs open right now. Same thing. But no. So then we get Boimler arriving, and the door's open for him, so no more glitch. And he gets asked, did he get his bull signed by Chakotay or whatever? And Boimler corrects Tom Paris, and no, not yet. He explains that he got a black eye from him, which is way cooler, and he's going to get an apology, and they're getting drinks that night. So we'll get his chance to have him sign it.
I got punched by Tom Paris. So awesome. I think we missed the scene, and did you guys catch this when Boimler was standing waiting for the turbo lift, and he was humming the theme song to Voyager?
I did catch that. I thought it was great.
Good.
Yeah, we didn't mention it before. It was good. But yeah, we also get the question asked of Rutherford. Did you ever find out how Shax came back? And then we get like internal screaming from Rutherford, and he answers calmly, "Nope, no, I did not." So they're just, or maybe they're just sparing us from knowing horrible, horrible things that happen to good people.
And to me, I think that's the way that they address this and put so much time into it, that there's definitely something, but it's not something that's talked about. I'm good with that. So
yeah, it doesn't matter.
Right. If he's back as a regular character, we've gotten all that we need in regards to the explanation behind it, which is great. Now, in regards to the behind the scenes, so was this something that was always planned? Did the actor who played the voice have any of you guys heard anything about the behind the scenes of the character coming back?
Good question. No,
Okay.
I haven't heard anything about it. I do know that the fan outcry when they killed Shax was pretty huge, because everybody fell in love with Tachitore's like acting for him. So
Okay, so it was probably a matter of this character was very popular, and in hindsight, we don't want to not have this character, and so got to bring him back somehow. Okay, I'll take it. I figured it was probably something like that.
We've already had 3 episodes end with Mariner in the brig. What do you think the trope this season is going to be, ending every episode with Mariner in the brig, but like the 10th episode, she'll be in the brig and save the day somehow?
I think
I think the other trope that we're missing here is the fact that how many episodes did we have where Tom Paris ended up in the bridge too, or in the brig as well, right? Including the one where he saves the ship and saves a planet with the water people, and then he gets demoted too. Also ends the same way.
30 days.
With his friends essentially sitting with him outside of the shield, just chit-chatting with him.
Yep. Okay, so if Mariner, if that's the trope, that at the end of every episode Mariner ends up in the brig, I hope that they would at least show her adding some more to her castle that she drew in there, because we saw it again, the Mariner HQ.
Yes.
So that would be nice if there was a little more added to the castle each time, and suddenly it's like this, big Scottish looking castle headquarters or something like that, or Castle Grayskull. I don't know. But that would be nice if they did something like that, just as an Easter egg.
I'm down. I like that. That sounds cool. I mean, I think that the idea of having her end up every episode in the brig is kind of a little ridiculous, but the show is a little ridiculous, so I'm totally down with it anyways.
Right. Like, that would not be crazy.
No, I mean, especially since this whole season started with her breaking up essentially with her mom, essentially, and like not being just her toady anymore, but now trying to be back to being her regular self. So ending up in the brig makes sense that way.
Well, that was a heck of a breakdown, guys.
Jesus, did we do 2 hours on a 20-minute cartoon again?
131 so far.
How do we end up? Okay.
Shit happens.
Well, we know. If it was just me, it'd have been 24 minutes, but it's not. It's the three of us as a team.
Well, and there's so much to unpack. There was a lot to unpack in this episode.
We've mentioned it before. They cram a lot into every scene. So it takes a bit to break it down if you want to look for it.
And we did.
In any case, thanks for being with us tonight, everybody. Jay, do we have any shout-outs?
Oh my, you're right. We have the shout-outs. I was sitting here just listening to your storytelling, and I realized I did not have this up and ready to go, but here are the shout-outs that we've got. Oh, did I pull up the right thing? No. All right, hold on just a moment. Sorry about that. I wasn't prepared, but here we go.
We can cut this in post, right?
So we've just go with it. Just go with it. Why not? Here are the special thanks. We've got Stephanie Baker for Patreon and Anchor. S. Tam contributes to our cause on Patreon. We've got Anne Marie, Patreon as well. Jim Cook is one of our contributors on Anchor. And if there are any screen caps that we use, that's from John from cygnus-x1.net. And if you want to find us on social media, do a search for Beyond Trek on Google or Beyond Trek Podcast. We're all over the place there.
Definitely have to go with Beyond Trek Podcast, because if you just do Beyond Trek, you get a bicycle company.
Don't want to compete with that, guys.
No,
yeah, we can't compete with bicycles. So yes, do Beyond Trek. We're on Patreon as Beyond Trek, twitter.com at Beyond Trek Pod. That's Dag's world right there. So if you want to interact with Dag, our trivia master, you'll find him running the Beyond Trek Pod Twitter account. On Facebook and Instagram, it's Beyond Trek Podcast. So join us there, talk to us, tell us what you think of the some of the deep dives we have on the episodes or some of the issues that we discuss and so forth. Love to hear from you on that.
Thanks so much for hanging out with me tonight, gentlemen, and we'll be back
Always
a
next
pleasure.
week with our takedown of episode 4, Mugato Gamato.
Ooh, Mr.
I wonder what that's going to be
Roboto.
about.
Yeah, no idea based on the words of a Mugato. Not at all. And
We are Beyond Trek Podcast. Lower your inhibitions and surrender your years. We will add inspirational and hilarious Trek content to your day. Your attention will adapt to subscribe to us. Resistance is futile.